Welcome to the Nonfiction Writers, podcasting in a great way. I'm Ryan Aber, joined by Jason Kersey, and we're here to discuss defensive backs for Oklahoma for the 2015 season. Jason, how you doing today?
Doing good, Ryan. Just ready to talk about this group that perhaps, other than quarterback, could end up being the most critical, determining how good this team's going to be.
Yeah, absolutely. You jumped the gun a little bit in our linebacker podcast earlier this week. It touched on defensive backs, but it's hard not to when you're talking about this defense in general because of the issues that they had on the back end last year, bled over into every other area of their defense, made them vulnerable to a lot of different attacks, and nowhere was that more evident than early in the second half of that Baylor game.
Yeah, no doubt about it. I mean, and really, you started seeing some signs of it in the West Virginia game. Kevin White had some big plays. Obviously, West Virginia was a pretty decent offense, at least early in the season. But I think that was the first time when you thought, oh boy, there might be some concerns here. But yeah, the Baylor game was just abysmal. They had some breakdowns though in the TCU loss. They had a couple of breakdowns in the Kansas State loss, Oklahoma State, Clemson, obviously. I mean, it was just really every time they lost, you could point at a few things, and that was a Trevor Knight turnover, with the exception of the OSU game because he didn't play in it, and defensive back problems. I mean, it was an issue that plagued them all season.
Yeah, and let's start with sort of the known commodity in the secondary, and that's got to be Zach Sanchez with the job he's done back there since he's been a redshirt freshman, really. He's sort of the one cornerstone back there of this group as they've gone through a lot of shifting over the last couple of years.
Yeah, and he's been good for the most part. But I would also say, I mean, there are even some concerns with him. I don't think that he's perfect by any stretch. He's had his share of problems as well. In that West Virginia game. Now he had an injury in that game. Also that's important to point out. But Zach Sanchez has really been pretty consistent, and he had a lot of interceptions last year. He really did a lot of good things. So I think he's certainly not the issue. Most of the time when there were issues, it was either in the safeties or on the other side. And Jordan Thomas was a true freshman, so I do think that he'll be a little bit better as well.
Yeah, I don't think there's any doubt about that. You mentioned Sanchez's issues. I think mainly those have been, can he tackle well enough back there? Of course, if you're playing corner and playing it really well, you hope that tackling isn't much of an issue, but certainly It gets exposed because that's what people see. Right.
I mean, that's the thing. You shouldn't. If you're playing cornerback as well as I think people expect that Sanchez to play, tackling shouldn't even be anything that's on anybody's mind. I don't think that it should. But that was sort of an issue at times last year, and I'm sure that's something he's worked on.
Yeah, and just sticking with sort of that line of thinking, and it goes away from OU football a little bit, but it was also always funny to me, when I was paying attention to football, and you'd have conversations with people, and they would start ripping Deion Sanders for not being able to tackle. You're like, that's not really what Deion Sanders' bread and butter is.
Right, exactly. I mean, that's not what anybody expects him to do really well, and if he is having to tackle a bunch, then that just means that either people up front aren't doing their job, or he's not doing his job in coverage, but that should never be the primary job of a cornerback.
No doubt about it. You mentioned his name just a second ago, but Jordan Thomas was a guy who stepped in late last season into the starting role, had some ups and downs, but did some good things as a freshman as he took over Julian Wilson's spot when he was hurt. But what do you think about the progression of Jordan Thomas coming up for this season?
Well, I mean, it's going to be huge. I think that the fact that he was the guy, the number 3 corner last season, was kind of a shock early on because he was a true freshman. He wasn't an extremely highly recruited guy. and yet he was able to kind of step in and overtake Stan Von Taylor, Dakota Austin, some of those guys in the pecking order. And then by the end of the year, he'd really kind of, I think, solidified himself as the number 2 guy, even when Julian Wilson was healthy, because of, he even though he had some young problems, some young mistakes, he was, I think, the better option there. And so he's only going to get better. He's so smart. He's the kind of guy that, we've written about before, that, he's an engineering major. He's really a brilliant mind, at least intellectually. And so you would expect that some of the mistakes he made last year, he's not going to make those again. And if anybody's going to be able to figure out a way to play better, it's going to be him. Now, I think most of the questions with him coming into this year are physical, and I do think he has a physical tool. So we'll just have to see. But to me, he's clearly the starter opposite Sanchez, unless something happens.
Yeah, I can't see anybody unseating him, at least, especially early in the season. But there are some other interesting names at cornerback. You've got Dakota Austin back there, who hasn't played a lot, played in the Sugar Bowl a couple years ago and made some plays. But you've got PJ and Bonasor, an incoming freshman who has been really highly thought of, a guy from Pflugerville, just like Samaje Perine. You've got Marcus Green, a guy who they thought could break through and play some last year as a true freshman. Didn't wind up doing that and redshirted. And then Stan Von Taylor back there, who played some as a true freshman, and then he's sort of gone away.
Yeah, and that's sort of an interesting deal, because I remember when he signed, they were real high on him out of Tulsa East Central. And, he started, I think, the 3rd game of the season, his true freshman year. He started against Tulsa at home. I think that was the second or third game of the third game. It was the 3rd game of the year, because that was also Bell's start. But so yeah, I mean, I think there's talent there. I just wonder. You sort of wonder what the problem was last year with him, but he's certainly talented enough to make a wave or make an impact. If I don't know whether it's a mental thing or what, but he's obviously got the skills.
Yeah, there's no doubt about that. I'm really looking forward to seeing Mbonasor, and hope I'm saying that right. But
I think you are.
The way that he's able to fit into this defense, and if there's according to the pronunciation guide, it is Mbonasor, which is a fantastic last name. But it also looks like he's the guy who could contribute pretty quickly back there.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, he's a 4-star guy, and the last time they went to Pflugerville Hendrickson High, things worked out. I'd say they worked out pretty well. So, I think he's going to have a shot. And then I think William Johnson's another guy to watch it, whether it's a corner or one of the safety spots, maybe nickel. I think Will Johnson's a guy who could also come in and make an impact as a newcomer.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, cornerback is a spot we feel pretty comfortable with who the 2 starters are going to be back there. But moving across the field to safety, not quite that same comfort level. Now, there's some guys back there who have started. Ahmad Thomas started all of last year. Had some, I don't know if ups and downs is the right way to describe it. He had some rocky times back at safety last season. And then there's Stephen Parker, who came on toward the end of the season and showed some flashes, but much like Jordan Thomas on the other side, had some ups and downs himself.
Yeah, I mean, that's going to be really huge is the safety spots. And Ahmad Thomas had a lot of trouble last year. I think he's going to certainly be one of the guys that is going to have a shot to start again. But he started all 13 games, so it sort of makes you wonder whether they just didn't have anything they felt comfortable putting in for him, or if they just so much believe in what he can do that they're going to keep giving him shots. But that's a guy. And like you said, Stephen Parker had his ups and downs. He's a true freshman. I think you can expect those sorts of things, but he's definitely, I think, going to be a big factor in the secondary this season. And to me, after that, you have Atari Bird entering his junior year. He's never really done much. this may be this I think definitely will be sort of the make or break year for him. He's either going to step in and contribute and be a big time player at Oklahoma, or he's just not going to be. He's just going to be one of those guys who never quite is able to do it. And so it'll be interesting to watch him. And then they have all these newcomers. Obviously the one that people know the most about would be Will Sunderland, and what's he going to be able to do? So they added a lot of safety depth in this recruiting class, and we'll see how quickly they're able to cash in on that stuff.
Yeah, because they're going to have some of these young guys play, whether it's Will Sunderland, whether it's Khalil Houghton, whether it's Prentice McKinney. Those guys are going to have to, or at least one or two of them are going to have to find their way into some kind of rotation back there with as many DBs as they're going to wind up needing to use.
Yeah, in an offense like this one, in a conference like this one with all the offenses you're going to face, you got to have a good rotation of DBs. And, I think the biggest concern there is you've got guys like Ahmad Thomas and Hatari Bird who you're not sure what they can do or if they're ever going to be great. And then you've got freshmen coming in that are new, and they're probably going to experience a lot of the same growing pains that Stephen Parker did last year. So it's going to be tough to know what they've really got back there until they start playing the games, and more specifically, until they start playing against Big 12 teams. Well, I guess Tennessee as well.
Yeah. Tennessee should be a pretty good test for them with the offensive weapons that they bring back. That's all the time we have for today. You can check us out every day at newsok.com and every morning in the Oklahoman for the best OU coverage anywhere.